All right, should be pretty brief video today, but what I want to talk about is which of these dimensional hole dungeons do you farm for your runes? We have 3 now, and so there's some choices. You know, whatever you pour your energy into will shape your account and determine, you know, what kind of account you've got. So I think it's pretty important to consider this. So I just want to talk about it briefly. We've got Karzan, Alunia, and now Lumel. Karzan is the most aggressive of the dungeons. You've got Rage Blade, which is super great. It's sort of an arena set Rage. You can kind of use it for cleave, but it's hard. It's hard to get Rage fast enough, and it's almost easier to get Swift damagey, if that makes sense. Like, it almost seems easier to put your damage dealers on Swift to make up the extra speed than it is to get speed Rage runes that deal a lot of damage. So something to think about. But you know, really great for arena, PvE, stuff like that. Blade, I think, is underrated as a set. I think Blade's pretty great. You can use it all the time, as long as you don't need Will, which we'll get to in a second. And then Nemesis, I think, is pretty good. Energy is subpar, and then Endure is also quite bad. So Karzan's not a bad choice. I farmed it quite a bit when I pulled a couple of decent runes and I needed to grind them out. So that's kind of what happens. You're second awakening something, you get a great rune from a craft, and then you want to grind it, so you have to farm a little bit, and then you get another rune you want to grind, and so on and so forth. Alunia is Despair Will, which is the highlight of this dungeon, and I think it's really awesome. You've got Nemesis again here and Endure, so you've got that overlap, whereas Energy is in place with Accuracy, which I think Accuracy is better than Energy a little bit because it affects all your monsters. You're not going to use it too often, but I think it is a little bit better. So in general, I think Despair is better than Rage, and the reason I think that is you can use DPS Despair runes and tanky support Despair runes, and there's a place for both. I'd say really support tanky Despair runes are slightly better than DPS Despair runes because there's not a lot of great Despair DPS monsters, but they're still usable. Whereas tanky support Rage runes are only broken runes. You know, if you get I have a couple, like I have a 28 speed slot 4 defense rune Rage. Doesn't make sense for any monster. It will always be broken, which is fine, but if that was a 28 speed Despair rune slot 4, it would be like, ooh, so nice. It works perfectly with what it's meant to do. While at the same time, if it was a slot 4 crit damage Despair rune, I might be able to build a Despair set something with it. Whereas Karzan, you know, the Rage, you really only want the DPS. So it kind of cuts half of the possible stat pool choices out of contending for the set, if that makes sense. So I think Despair is better than Rage. I think Will is probably better than Blade. Blade is a turn 1 aggressive kind of a rune. Will is a turn 2 protecty type of rune. So there's a nice synergy in the runes in Alunia. Despair and Will are kind of similar. They can be turn 2. They're useful in a lot of places. I think most people would say Will is, you know, the top PvP Will those set a spot aside from like Violent and Swift. So Alunia is really, really nice. Despair and Will, like, very, very nice. Accuracy I also like. Nemesis I think is also good. What's interesting is the top 2 dungeons both have Nemesis. So I kind of expect the general Nemesis rune quality of the player base to massively increase from before Lumel came out. I think probably there's a lot of great Nemesis runes out there. You know, so every time you hit a Jean, blame Karzan or Alunia because she's probably got Nemesis and she's probably doing a great job. So that's Alunia. Coming down to Lumel, I think Lumel's got some issues. It's got the Will, which is great, so that matches up perfectly with Alunia, and I think is better than the Blade of Karzan. Energy, same as Karzan, not good. Destroy, I think, is pretty terrible, and I also think Guard's pretty bad. So, I mean, I think I would definitely take Nemesis over Energy, Guard, or Destroy. No problem. I would take Accuracy over Energy or Guard and maybe Destroy. It's pretty close. The problem is Destroy is only aggressive, really, and only on like 2 monsters. And then the problem with Vampire is the same problem with Rage. You need Vampire runes, but you need like 15 of them total. You know, you've got 2 or 3 monsters, that's it, that need your top tier Vampire runes. And, you know, if you played as long as I am, they're probably already runed, and the odds of an upgrade, you know, it's not impossible, but they're probably okay, right? So I don't know, if you don't have good Vampire runes, this is a nice place to get them because you can get some good Will runes too, but the offsets are all worse than Alunia. So Vampire's also got that problem of you need only aggressive runes, same as Rage. The support Vampire runes, no real place for. Maybe an HP rune with attack substats for some of your tankier Vampire users, but in general you want aggressive substats on Vampire runes, not support substats. You just don't. So that kind of cuts the available decent rolls in half, which I think is bad. So I would wholeheartedly recommend Alunia farming over Karzan. I think that's got a check. That's like, I didn't even put that check there. It's like in game. Like, yeah, good job, game. I would recommend Alunia farming over Lumel or Karzan, hands down. Despair is really, really good. My Praha's up to like 265 speed from this Alunia business, and that's something I wasn't sure I would ever hit. And I know there's faster ones out there, but I'm pretty happy with it. And then the Will, of course, and you're never going to be sad to make another Nemesis set. So that's what I would recommend. I would recommend Alunia over any of the other ones. You know, if you got a second awaken stuff, you got to do it. You have to, because otherwise you can't make the reaps. Make the reaps every week. But Alunia is the dungeon to run. The other thing that I think I've mentioned briefly about these dungeons, but I don't know that I've emphasized it enough, is I really think people have said, oh, you know, if people buy reaps and runes and stuff, they're going to get so far ahead that they won't be able to be caught up, which is true. But these new rune types, until they release some way to buy energy, these rune types are basically wiping the runes clean and giving everybody who farms a new set of runes over time to compete with the heavy spenders, which I think is crazy. Like, let's go, we'll go speed all. So it's on this has only been out for a little bit, you know, and already these new runes are kind of peppering my box over the old runes. There's slot 1, slot 2, not so much. But slot 3, look at this. My second and third best slot 3 runes in terms of speed are the new runes. I've been farming for years and years and years before these new runes came out, and these guys are already, they cut in line to second and third place. Those 2 runes are not purchasable via packs. They're not reappable. They're not, you can't buy a million reaps to get them. You can only farm them currently. So for someone like me, that's really great. I mean, look at this. My first and third fastest, I mean, it's a tie. My first and third fastest slot 4s in the game are new runes. Look, we've also got some other ones just kind of hanging out. Okay, by other ones, I mean 1. But that's pretty impressive. I mean, farm for 4 years, get this. Farm for, you know, however long this thing's been out. A year or something, probably less. Get 2 immediately that are comparable. And I've seen some people that have way better stuff than this. So, I don't know. Look at this. Second and third. I mean, they're just really, really good. Maybe I already looked at this. I think I did. Let's look at slot 5. Oh, look. My fastest slot 5 rune, it's a tie, is a new rune. And I haven't even maxed it. It's so new. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I can emphasize the new runes enough. Like, that's a good little rune. Look at that on Perna. He's so happy with it. Other than that, there's nothing else. So you can't buy reaps to get runes of this quality, and they are good enough and just a little bit better to start cutting in line of all the other runes. I don't know. I don't know if I can make that clear. Like, I think the most valuable thing you can do in this game currently is farm new runes in those dungeons. So which one you choose is massively important, and I think the Despair Will one is the one to go with. I mean, even these that are kind of secondary, like that, not good, but not terrible. It's got a roll into crit, a roll into speed, and a phantom roll into accuracy. Probably started at 10, but it might be a reap target if I really want an attacker. That one could have been so good if it rolled triple speed. It started at 7, and I put a defense on it anyway just because. But anyway, I'm just off topic here. So anyway, farm the new runes. I would heavily advise farming the Despair. When they come out with new dungeons, if they ever come out with Swift, I will farm that nonstop into the ground forever. And hopefully they'll come up with Swift and Violent at the same time, so that you'll have to choose. So the violent people will get really, really violent, and the Swift people will get really cuckoo fast. I don't know. Some people think they won't come out with those 2 sets, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that that's their plan. So I think it's probably on the way. So that's, man, I don't know if that rune's any good. That's my recommendation, is farm it. In my current teams, I don't have a team for the vampire one. I don't even think I've farmed it at all. I need to spend some of those. I'm kind of debating whether to make a Miho or not. Is that the name, the dark cat? So my Karzan team, I think I've shown you guys before, but it's this. Works great. I'm a fan of safe over speed. So my teams are slow, so slow. This is the slowest team ever. Sometimes I'll replace Ramahan with Lagmaron. But that's what I use there, just super slow. And then I like I said, I don't have a team for Lumel because I've not done it at all. Yeah. Oh, look, I did farm to 5. I just haven't cleared 5. Maybe I did. I don't know. So anyway, that's my take on the new dungeons. I feel like I discussed it, but I had not hit home with how decent they are and how just, I think, borderline game breaking. It feels like in World of Warcraft where they would reset everybody's gear in between expansions. It's really, really slow. Of course, as soon as they start selling a pack with 50 of this energy, that all goes out the window and yeah, back to square one. But so far they've resisted. I don't know that they resisted that with the re-apps this long. Maybe they did. I can't recall. So hopefully they won't do that. That's my hope, but we'll see. Anyway, we've talked about this long enough. Merry Christmas, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.